So today I'm meeting with a great friend of mine, Spiros Margaris. Spiros is a venture capitalist, a futurist, a keynote speaker, and senior advisor for many of the most interesting fintechs that are out there. Spiros also support accelerators and growth ecosystems all around the world. Spiros ranks as one of our top FinTech influencers, but also in blockchain and AI. I don't know how you find all the time, Spiros. He's also a TEDx speaker and a writer. So welcome, Spiros, and thank you so much for giving me time today.
Well, Sabine, what you said is so beautiful, and it's my huge pleasure to be with you. And we know each other for a while, and I have the highest respect for you, and that's why I was actually excited to be part of it, and also anxious because out of the huge respect I have for you, that I always feel like, oh, maybe there will be a question I can't answer, but what the heck? Let's go for it. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and because you're one of the women in InsurTech that you know your stuff, and huge respect. But enough of this. But I had to say it. I had to say it. As you could tell, I wasn't prepared for it to say it, but that's the best way to go for it.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. Trying to do my bits, but it's all about you today, and I would love to start with, for listeners and viewers to know a bit more about you. So who is Spiros? What drives Spiros every day?
Yes, I'm an investor and advisor of several startups. Plenty. I think I have to, if somebody will tell me, I have to really think about it. But it's a great privilege to be, I've been involved advising 2 unicorns, WeFox and STC Pay. And I've been in Spark Labs Group in California, an accelerator venture firm, and in several startups globally in InsurTech and healthcare. So I'm very privileged to get involved and be involved with those startups, because most of the time when I invest, I am like a coach to the founders, a sounding board. And being one of the top or number one, whoever in FinTech for years, it's a huge privilege, because it's a privilege to be recognized by your community. But at the end of the day, I say this always: you're only as good as your community. It's a give and take. We grow together, and I think that's a privilege. And I come from the hedge fund business, and I moved into the FinTech space slowly by accident. People asked me, family office asked me to do a robo-advisor. And then I said, I don't want that, but I have a FinTech company we could co-invest. And that's how it started. And, I grew with the industry.
That's fascinating.
And it's a 7 days a week work, but it's a privilege to do it.
So you are saying it's a 7 day a week to work within the FinTech environment, because you're advising, and as you know, young ventures and CEO of companies will call you any time of the day or night, weekends as well.
And I tell them they can, and it's not that they will, but if they do it, it must be a reason, and it's all right. It's a beautiful thing to have the trust of such smart people. I don't expect them to do what I tell them, obviously not. But I tell them what I think, and I'm a trusted source of knowledge in the FinTech space, because sometimes those startups, as you've probably noticed as well, is we're very focused on something, and sometimes I don't even know what the competition is doing, or what the global trends are. So it's good to have a sounding board who tells them, have you thought of this? But at the end of the day, it's always the founders who decide, because it's their responsibility. I said the buck stops there.
Absolutely. And, as you said, as a coach and as a sounding board, what is very important is not to tell the founder what to do, but actually advise them around what you have seen right out there. They have to take their decisions. And it's often what I say as a coach as well myself to the team I work with. I can't take the decision for you. I can only tell you what I see. And then you need to take your own decisions.
Exactly. And, and that's how you build trust as well with those founders, because if they have good experiences from what you tell them, I think that always builds trust. And trust is the basis of working together, because times are not always perfect, but therefore with trust, you get far, even in difficult times, which there will always be, difficult times.
Absolutely.
We've seen this in the insurtech space now, where a lot of IPOs are well below. A lot of insurtechs are well below the IPOs. And, it's not the best of times, but I think some of them will learn from this and adjust their business model, which some of them will do.
And it's also about, as you said, it's about pivoting and adjusting through the learnings. You mentioned trust. You mentioned, I think for me, knowing you for so many years, you are very authentic. So trust, authenticity are key part of the equation.
Right.
And the key thing which has always startled me and, something I really wanted to know about you, how did you move from being an hedge fund to becoming one of our leaders in FinTech?
When the company I was involved with as a partner was sold, a year after I left, it was like 2010, many months ago. And then you try to find something that, that you have to find something again to do that you would love to do. And I had my own startups in New York with failures, big billboards, but it failed. I went through a divorce, not because of a bad woman. I always tell a fantastic woman, but it's just the consequences of startup world. It's people only see the bright side. So I moved into the FinTech space, by accident almost, through my hedge fund experience, through my startup experiences. And I think at the end of the day, what I do now, I combine all my experiences, as Steve Jobs once said beautifully. I always tell people, because I love it, you have to connect the dots. And all the experiences, even my artistic experiences in my 20s, I use with my presentations. So by accident, I moved into a space where I look at fintechs like a company, like a stock. I look at them as an investor. I look at them as a consumer, and that's my strength. That I gave the keynote speech at the biggest IBM event in Europe. What an honor! And everyone in the audience, I could tell, I knew, and I know they were smarter than me in AI, in cloud, everything, because they're cracks in the audience.
They're amazing, right? They know their stuff inside out.
If you go to Amazon or wherever you will go, AWS or SAP, but my strength is to connect the dots, tell the story. And I've done such a good job so far that I have a huge following, etc. So you have to play your strengths. At the end of the day, if somebody asks me a question I can't answer, and startups will ask me, and I said, I don't know. But then I call people. I might call you, I call somebody else and say, hey, we have this issue. Do you know anyone in your network? And that's what's so great about our network. We don't have to know everything. We can't know everything, but we play our strengths. And that's the role. I tell everyone we're like a soccer team. I don't play soccer, though. I used to play as a kid. I play my position very well, but winning is about teams. Everyone, there's a Ronaldo there. There's a lot of players, and together we win. Every startup, I think that's the magic. But hopefully, in a great startup, you have a lot of great people in their position, and they love their job.
So
summed it up a little bit, or maybe I spoke too much. Maybe both.
No, not at all. So looking at what are the criteria to create a growth venture, Spiros, you mentioned you need a great team, right? Like in football. But when you look at the stages of company formation, you don't always start with the great team. You may have 1-2 founders. So can you tell us what you've seen and what you've learned from the growth of great companies, which have become actually, as part of your portfolio, unicorns?
Yeah, I think they have been a little bit crazy. I think really, I mean, it comes to think of it, it's like they have to think in bigger terms that it's almost a little bit crazy. It's like they think of themselves even that they're bigger than they are, that the business will be bigger than they are, and they really believe it. I think that attracts some people, attracts definitely investors. They obviously have to have the experience to execute, because if they don't have traction, then it's just an idea. We've seen that also with companies we work together. You have to, and if it's a cool company, if it evolves to become a really great company, I'm not talking about valuations. Like, remember TransferWise. Remember, I always, in the early days when they run seemingly naked on the street, a crazy campaign, excellent campaign to show we're transparent. It became, besides of a great product, which is now for people to know, most of our audience will know it's Wise, but it became a place you wanted to work with, You want to be the part of that story. So I think it starts small, that a little bit crazy, knowing your stuff, being convincing to investors and to obviously to customers. And I think with that, you will attract slowly, because your light gets brighter and brighter. You will attract more and more great talent. And great people want to work in great companies.
Absolutely.
Much more than about the money. Money is just a side effect of, oh my God, it went so well and we got shares, but the few companies will succeed. But working for a great company, when you go home and say, oh my God, they're giving me so much cool responsibilities, and they even listen to what I have to say. I think that's what people are seeking. Young people, to go to a company where your voice makes a difference.
Voices which makes a difference, and also understanding the impact you have is, I think, very important. What I also see right now is, young people trying to move away from the corporate environment into the startup world. What is your experience of that shift? And what are the lessons can you give to young people wanting to make that shift and having the impact they need to make in the startup entrepreneurial world?
I had this discussion yesterday with not a stepson, but somebody who's quite close to me, and who is close to our family. And he went that path because in Berlin, in Munich, because the startup world is very hot now. Most young people would love to. They see it as freedom. They see it. Some see it as creating wealth. Whatever your motivation will be, but once they start, they see that there's some. They only see the exciting news, but then you realize also that there's a lot of routine, and it's not as sexy as it seems always. And what I told them yesterday, because we really had this conversation, and you try to learn from each other, because I try to learn from the person listening, even is much younger, because they have experiences or thoughts we might have forgotten. I heard once a professor saying, I hear students ask questions I forgot to ask.
Yes, that happens.
Because we're getting older and they're jaded. So I said, it's like a relationship. It's like, a startup is like a relationship. You will have great times, you will have mediocre times, you will have bad times. That's the one aspect. So it can't be this exciting thing people think of. And even if it's extremely boring and repetitive, that's what makes you so good at something. Then you're so good at it, at this repetitive work, which every work has, that you can think about different things.
But that is where, businesses are built on, if we took consultancy, or even talking about the big tech, businesses are built on processes, technology, and people. Processes need to be repetitive and industrialized for them to make any sense. And actually, then when you understand the process very well, then you can automate it. You can use AI, you can use whatever is required to start making your process digital technology. But then your talent can actually start growing into your organization to take more accountability and more responsibility and be more creative as well. But businesses are built on processes, so there will be repetitive process, and it's going to be boring.
Young people, it's hard to, I mean, it's like you haven't had that experience before. But the question that was, the next question was, which relates probably to what you asked me before, is it better to work corporate? And people in this, if you're not corporate, not startup, you think startup is the world. Once you're in startup, you think, maybe I made a mistake or not, because corporate might be boring, but it's a little more secure, or it's much more secure than startup. And then the older you get, the more you think, maybe I might have a family, or I would like to have a family, I would like to get married, maybe she would like some stable income, which probably with the startup world, it's not that sure. I mean, it's not for everyone. An AI expert or some excellent tech guys, they will always find something. But I mean, as I said, the group of people you need to be successful, it's very diverse. And some jobs are not as secure as others.
Can I ask you, based on the companies you've worked with, and I'm going to go into the new remote working we have experienced during the past 18 months. I used to run accelerators, and my team was with me in the same room, and where every night we were having dancing forums. And so you can build a culture and an environment where you bond and you think it is the best things in your life because you are in that environment. Now with remote working, you have to try to replicate that digitally, and it's not easy because, as you know, you and I know, the hours in the day have become longer, and the time we spend on digital platform like this one to talk today are becoming longer as well. So what have you seen as best practice to move from a face-to-face environment to becoming good at doing remote working?
I think we all became a little bit good at remote working. For me, it was a natural thing. But I think young people, again, not only young, they like to see each other sometimes as much as they like to work at home. But this interaction of at the office, I think, I went to Greece last week to visit 3 companies I'm involved in. And to spend a day with a company, it's so more efficient to speak, like we see, not only we see each other, we have the computer or the blackboard or whatever you want to call it, and work. It's so more efficient than just work remotely, But it's a reality. And then, I see companies that require people to come back again, at least partial. I think that maybe the solution will be a partial, where you work 3 days at home or 2 days and 3 days at the office, because it's different than if I just walk into your office and say, Sabine, can we talk about this? Or do you have time? And if you have time, it's so more efficient. I see the mixture of work environment from the office or at home, and it's still young. We're still not experienced enough. But what happened now is, like, you do deals like this, where before it was like, oh, come to see us in Berlin. Okay, you went to Berlin. You had coffee, you had dinner. Now it's like, it's this half hour, maybe another half hour, maybe not, but it's so more efficient.
Correct.
And it's good enough. I mean, it's always better to see it in person, but we're getting used too quickly, I think, to this kind of reality.
We are getting used to the new reality for sure. And you're right. The deals which required, even in insurance, we are a very relationship-based industry where we want to see each other, we want to hug each other, we want to make sure, look each other in the eye to make sure we can trust one another. And you're right, I would say more the past 6 months than the previous 12 months, because I think there has had to have been an adjustment. I see far more deals being closed digitally and faster, and paid as well into bank accounts much faster than they were before, because also insurers had to adapt their processes and the way they evaluate their partners to actually start building their own growth. I want to ask you now one of your key strengths. What are the key trends you see affecting FinTech? When you look at the past 18 months and moving into the future, what is going to impact us, Spiros?
The big digital transformation in general has been a little bit behind us, through, as we spoke just before, Zoom calls, people did a lot more digital. People were not familiar with this. This happened, the big thing, and companies adjusted, remote work was one of it. But if we look at the future, I think embedded finance, which already has started, that's the future, basically. And with that, also embedded insurtech, it's just, I spoke about this many years ago, that I foresee that big companies that are non-financial companies like Walmart or Volkswagen, or somebody who core business has nothing to do with finance, will go into this space because they just partner or develop their own FinTech solution and complement the offerings even better. Because the nice thing about embedded finance, they have customers, they have products, they don't even have to make money from finance. Obviously they will try at the end to make money, but it's different than for bank or FinTech that basically doesn't have milk or a car to sell. It's just, that's what I have. So the kind of cake we see here, the financial cake that originally was by banks, insurances, now we have FinTechs, obviously, we have tech giants, and we have every other company that basically has enough customers to provide them with FinTech solutions. And it's all different. Tesla does insurances, and they have the data. Uber has its own thing. Walmart has its credit cards, but maybe would like to serve a specific group of people, maybe people who are a little bit underserved, but nevertheless, they buy stuff,
And they need better service. When you talk about the underserved, a lot of them do not have a bank account, but they can leverage some of the newer banking payment facility to enable them to become consumers.
Or like in India, for instance, India, I read a report, excellent report, that women were extremely empowered by FinTech, because in the old days, the parents took their son to the bank, but not the daughter. But there are a lot of women out there, and they support their families. So through FinTech, they didn't have to go to the bank. Through digital transformation, they had the bank at their iPhone, whatever. So by helping people getting bank accounts, you empower people. And as an example, women in India, not all women, but the women who were not exposed to financial products before, and that's very cool. That's so much cooler. It's like, if you want to tech for good, it's this helping the people who are not privileged. As you said, don't have bank accounts. If you don't have bank accounts, it's very hard to do a lot of things.
Correct.
Go rent a place if you don't have an account.
Absolutely. And one thing which comes to mind, Spiros, is looking at the current market shifts. You already highlighted a key trend, which are the digital ecosystems. How do you harness the power of digital ecosystem and collaboration in what you do every day?
You mean my social media activities or what?
So I would say part of it would be...
That's one thing where I say, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. So, when you look at your community, yes, you have many digital communities, right? When we look at even other influencers we're actually working with or interacting with through the social media. But then you also have let's say in banking, you see the back end or middle office or the back office. how do you actually make sure that other transactional environments allows you to prosper and grow? When I talk about digital ecosystem, I talk about the interdependencies and interconnections between companies, people, and things, and how we come together to actually help the next big things to happen, yes. Like your embedded finance example.
Very nice. I mean, it's of course the FinTech community we have, then the involvement we are involved in as investors, obviously. Then, through the consultancies, which provide us with great research or feedback. And then, for instance, one thing is like Johnny Sprague, we both know, as this kind of think tank where we attract vendors with tech people from the insurance industry or banking industry. And that's always, I have to tell Johnny that I took this podcast and promoted his unbelievable event. Because you hear both sides. You hear the people who want to sell the FinTech products or related to the FinTech industry, from chatbots to whatever you think of might serve financial institutions. And then on the other side, you have the people who have to implement it within the organizations. And I love that because, you hear both truths, And the middle ground is where the truth lies. But because otherwise you think only, oh my God, only the FinTech industry has the smartest people. It's not true. Huge institutions have extremely smart people, extremely capable people that just have different challenges, Right.
And different metrics as well. I think, yes. You can only affect what you can measure, right? We know this great quote. And I think the result of this is behavior are different. I know me building my own companies, my behavior are very different from when I was working in corporations, right? And I assume that also affect the way people behave.
Absolutely. But I love to talk both sides. It's so interesting. And if you take them seriously, which I take them extremely seriously, because usually they know more than I do, so I take them very seriously. And I respect what they do. It's so interesting. I mean, that's the nice thing about our job. We talk to so many smart people. It's such a privilege. It's like you will keep learning. It's like a fantastic school.
Beautiful words you just said. That is, we have the luxury to meet so many amazing people. And by meeting those people, even, when you meet so many FinTech startups, InsurTech, health tech, wealth tech, and they share their business model with you, you have to feel humbled around the minds which are there, right, Spiros?
Absolutely. And it's fantastic. It's like a toy store.
Correct. Like a toy store all the time.
And the toy stores and toys are all those great startups. And each toy, there were a lot of smart people behind it who thought about the form, about the color, what it should do, why it should do, why it's valuable. And, that's unbelievable. It's like, that's the nice thing we have now, Sabine. It's like, we talk about this and we realize, this was a toy store. That's the first time I used this kind of
metaphor.
But it's so true.
It is. Amazing metaphor, because then you start, you can look at the component of each choice and the subcomponents. And, as you said, each choice is around, I'm seeing a Barbie doll, right? That is probably one of the first toy I had when I was a little girl. You can see an arm and the blonde hair and the beautiful eyes. Each of the components doing the doll have been thought through very carefully. And still today, right? Today, as they are becoming really interesting toys, which are becoming vintages. I was looking at the keyword like vintage toys as well.
And besides of this toy store metaphor, anything I see, like I bought a great backpack, and it was so beautifully done, and not beautiful, just thought through everything. Everything's unbelievably thought through, which I go to meetings and say, hey, look at this backpack. This is the perfect backpack. It's like probably when we saw the first iPod and we had it in the hand, it's just, my God, they figured it out. And I love when I see, even in different industries, things that so thought through that I have the highest respect, because whoever those people are, they put so much thought on everything on this backpack, and that it just brings, makes me in awe that these people can do this. And it's just, but beyond FinTech, I get inspiration from a lot of things beyond FinTech. I don't think some negative thing about FinTech I have to say is that we just picked up, I've said it before, we picked up just the low-hanging fruits. I haven't seen many things that are it's more things that huge incumbents should have done. FinTechs did, some even smarter. I mean, like Robinhood, to make it free trading. That's something impossible to have thought of before. So they did it. That's cool stuff they did.
It's actually bridging the gap, right? When you look at Robinhood, and we always hear both sides of the coin when we talk about Robinhood, but it's about mass market, it's delivering a mass market capability for those who probably were unable to invest before. And as you said, it's free, but they have worked out their business model based on volume.
Free, it's just... no, everyone knows who studies Robinhood's business model, but nevertheless, they figured it out. So this kind of things I love, how gamification came in, or how Wise reduced the fees for transferring money. Those are cool stuff.
Absolutely.
But I see a lot of copycats of a lot of things. It's like in the old days, eBay started and somebody else started eBay in Europe. So we copycat as fast as possible. And, it seems still to work, if you're fast enough, because Americans, FinTechs probably are not good at in Europe. And obviously, as we've seen, Europeans are not good in America, as we've seen with a lot of challenger banks.
Yes, bridging the gap between the two markets require more than a great brand. It's really understanding of, in Europe, in the case of Europe, sub-markets as well, and nuances around communication, behavior, time to convert deals, and all those things. But you, Spiros, as an investor, as a board member, as an advisor, what are the metrics you use every day to make choices around those companies you want to work with?
The ones I'm already involved in is already gone. It's like there's not much choice you can make. It's like you jumped on the journey, on the train, and the train is moving. And maybe you walk to the cockpit and tell them, hey, maybe we have to reduce speed or whatever. But it's not you who drives that train. The decision have to be made before. Because once the money is invested or whatever deal it is, there's not much you can do afterwards, at least not me, and I don't think many. It's like you hope that they execute as promised. But before you go to that journey, before you jump into this train that accelerates with the journey of IPO, whatever journey it is, you look if they have, and I always tell people, do they have enough traction? Because when I look at traction, I see if people like what they're selling.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple metrics. And within this kind of traction, where I tell everyone, you see everything. You see that they have a strategy. In order to have traction, you can be lucky that people buy it anyway. But if you have continuous growth traction, selling more products or solutions or whatever, it means they have a good salesperson, they have a good CEO, CFO. Everything has to play into role. So with this very simple metrics, of course, you have to. And that's one thing. And the other thing is, for me, is do I understand it? Because there are unbelievable products out there, but if I don't understand it, it's something that I cannot add value. Or if I don't understand, it's like then it's like a flying blind. But and then I think, because I'm a little bit older and I had my misfortunes in my life, like everyone, there's a lot of luck involved. There are companies who look very nice at the beginning and then they're correct. And I don't mention it today, but they turned around with good people on board and management. So, it's like almost like a marriage,
Always like a marriage, right? Alliances.
And yeah, exactly. So, but traction is the key thing, and then luck is another thing. You might be in the right place, the right, you know, yes, right place, right time.
I'm teaching InsurTech disruption at Paris Business School with Professor Lanzola. And one question we ask so we do FinTech InsurTech. Mm-hmm. One question we ask to the executive MBAs, is it the business model or is it luck? When we start reviewing a number of FinTech InsurTech business models.
And what did they say?
I think sometimes it's luck, as you said. Sometimes it's cleverness, but I think it's timing. When a business model really is about timing.
Absolutely.
Right.
Being in the right luck. Timing is luck. And that you're at the right place. So the longer you survive as a startup, the more likely this timing will come at the right place. Like now we have difficult times for InsurTechs, as we discussed before. But I think they will learn quickly, and will, and I believe even InsurTechs, yes, that's something good that we talk about it today. It's like, FinTechs don't think twice of not partnering with somebody, yeah? Non-FinTech, because the smart ones just think, okay, we know our core business, but our customers would like to have some InsurTech or whatever. But InsurTechs probably, I can say this, and this is a statement, they haven't figured it out because they're still in the InsurTech path, but InsurTech should be an enabler. It's like you got into the party with InsurTech. Let's make the most out of it and maybe become a challenger bank at the end. But they are just so focused on InsurTech, which is still, obviously, I know for good reason, the insurance market is huge and there's still a lot to grow.
And so
but the other players, they don't play so clean. It's like, you can over-diversify yourself and lose traction and lose. But as InsurTech, you say, hey, God, we grow like this. Maybe we have to take something else on too. It's easier said than done.
Yes. And it's about building partnership. And we have seen that with some of the portfolio ventures and startups we have worked with, who actually have understood that it's about digital ecosystem where you actually start with your core product and then you build your partnership, maybe in FinTech and in InsurTech, embedded finance, embedded insurance to actually deliver for the customer. As long as you understand your customer and how you deliver customer value and you understand the key touch points of that engagement, we can take away the friction.
Yeah, but I haven't seen the other way. I don't know. Maybe there is. InsurTech, they're so focused on this insurance journey.
Yes.
But direction, they will think, maybe they have to learn some new tricks.
I think some of the unicorn into InsurTech are starting doing this. There are very few. You're absolutely right, Spiros. There are very few. The one which you have worked it out. When I talked with them, I can see they have worked out in some ways some embedded finance, embedded retail journey, and some who are doing very well. Actually, you will not even hear about them. And I may actually bring them onto the podcast soon.
I would love that. You have to tell me.
I'll tell you when they come, but there are a few.
Well, obviously they are, but that's the thing we should quickly address too. They have to, I thought startups, they have to work even, not everyone obviously, on their brand and be much louder, much louder, because, the more known their brands are, the more trust is there. It's like this,
And I know, this is actually the pet peeve I have with a lot of the InsurTech I work with, because they tend to be shyer, more humble, and so therefore less loud. And said, look at your cousin in FinTech. They tend to be louder. And so the few I'm working with, like you, is all about brand identity and actually trying to get them out there and not be shy about talking about the great things they are doing. But you're right, very different behaviors between the two. One is more trader going out.
And if they can't do it, they should hire people who can. As simple as that. It's like if you see a weakness in your team, and you have to. And what I also see, a lot of them. No,
Sorry about that.
don't worry about it. What I also see, a lot of them, they don't take social media seriously. I mean, what they do is they take Facebook ads, Google ads seriously because that's a B2C acquisition tool. But that's not branding, that's acquiring customers, which is fantastic. But to build your brand, people don't realize. I mean, when they hear about influencers, they feel like, oh, my daughter, they want to be influencers. And if they talk like this, likely they will not be as successful as they can be, because the game has changed completely. Not now, for a while. And I've seen the successful startups are very loud in their own way, and they have a social media strategy which is authentic. I mean, I'll give you an example. Lemonade did a fantastic job with their newsletters, etc. I mean, Lemonade probably put the whole insurtech market on the map, I believe, with a strong brand. And WeFox does a great job now. But I'm just saying, there are a lot of great companies out there, but yes, keep working. Don't be modest.
Yeah, and I do enjoy reading the article on the Lemonade website. I think, as you said, the fewer than the many have actually understood the parameters of branding. But John Schneider is a marketeer, right? And some of them are coming from that state. Understand why this is powerful and why that makes, you have to be consistent all the time on your authenticity and your trust and the way you're actually creating credibility, as you mentioned, the newsletter, with your target market. And you have to make them laugh as well. It's not just the seriousness of business. You have to make people feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very important. So for my last question, I would love for you to tell us, what are your word of wisdom for our communities, for the FinTech world and InsurTech world?
I think we should support each other. We're a small community. I've seen, honestly, that some people in the community work like corporates, like little islands, which, they lose out in this game. It's just when I go to some Twitter handles and I see only their own tweets, and obviously they have more tweets of themselves, but it's okay, and of others, but then they're losing out. That's my advice. I think it's a community that is strong because we help each other. Right. And that's a magic. I mean, we're like the underdogs anyway. Beyond corporate world and everything, we're like the little underdogs.
Absolutely. Like our little underdogs, absolutely true. But one thing I love doing is, when I finish my day and, I love cooking dinners for my wonderful husband and like you do for your wonderful wife.
I do that.
I enjoy replying. I'm on my phone and I'm replying to your tweets and, I'm reading the thing and I said, oh, yes, I agree with this. No, I don't agree with this. Mm-hmm. So as you said, it's about engaging. And I tend to do this of my time, my me time, when I do this in the evening.
But I think like this, helping each other is the best thing, and you establish great friendships but most of them are very supportive, I must say, of each other. Don't think corporate, because if we start thinking corporate, we're like, Death Star. We're already on the wrong side of, but some people can't change it. But from my experience, I can say, and I'm quite successful in what I'm doing, is helping the community grow and being part of it and being very grateful to be part of it. And I think I'm very fortunate to be part of this fantastic community.
We are both lucky to be part of an amazing community, and I've made amazing friends, so that the people know Spiros and I never met face to face. We are digital friends and we talk to each other as well on the phone. And I feel very grateful to be part of your network, Spiros.
And I'm very grateful that we're friends.
Same here. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And looking forward to continuing our conversation on the digital and social media.
We will do it in person once.
I can't wait.
Thank you.
Thank you, Spiros.
Thank you.
If you like this podcast, subscribe now, share with your friends, and if you enjoyed it, please give it a 5-star review. Also, if you want to cover any specific subject with me, contact me on Instagram under Sabine VdL Officials or LinkedIn under Sabine VdL. Thank you.